edition of NAVFAC Atlantic's Industry Forum webinar. Today's forum is geared to reinforce our partnership with the construction and engineering design industry across the globe. Thank you for joining us. I'm Captain Lou Cariello, the Commanding Officer for NAVFAC Europe, Africa, Southwest Asia, and I'll be opening today's presentation. It's our hope that we'll provide information for the construction and design industry that will best posture you to help work best with NAVFAC for our mutual benefit. Okay, on the next slide, please. All right, if everyone's with us on the webinar, this slide depicts the laydown of NAVFAC Atlantic. NAVFAC, in general, is a global engineering acquisition command that's responsible for executing facilities engineering and facilities management services in order to plan, build, and maintain Navy and Department of Defense installations across the globe. This is a snapshot of NAVFAC Atlantic area of operations, which includes the continental United States, as well as Europe, Africa, and Southwest Asia. NAVFAC Atlantic's sister organization is NAVFAC Pacific, which covers the Pacific theater, which is not part of this industry forum. Organizationally, though, speaking of NAVFAC Atlantic is separated into 7 different facilities engineering commands who are each responsible for delivering NAVFAC's products and services to our supported commands. Again, the focus of this brief today, our presentation, will involve the overseas portion of NAVFAC Atlantic's responsibility, covering Europe, Africa, and Southwest Asia. We'll be opening the brief with a series of additional presenters covering all of our business lines, and at the end of the brief, there'll be an opportunity for a question and answer session, and we welcome your questions and look forward to them. Next slide. This is a chart which depicts a historical perspective of NAVFAC's volume of business over the years. And starting on the left-hand side of this chart, you'll see that NAVFAC 8 to 10 years ago was roughly a $7 to $8 billion operation per year. As you can see, as you move into the more recent years, pretty steep incline to the FY 10, 11, and 12 timeframe, where we're peaking in our volume of business. There are 3 factors really that contribute to that almost doubling of our volume of business over those years. Number one, we had the Marine Corps Grow the Force initiative, in which the Marine Corps was authorized to add 27,000 Marines to their force. Now, all of those Marines require barracks facilities, chow halls, and training facilities in order to operate and perform their function for the Department of Defense. So it represented quite a dramatic increase in NAVFAC's workload over those years. Additionally, in 2009 and 2010, NAVFAC was designated as the executive agent for the execution of the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act investments in our infrastructure in the Department of Defense. Lastly, we received quite a bit of funding for our overseas contingency operations, for which NAVFAC was responsible for executing contingency engineering missions, as well as our expeditionary support mission and facility lifecycle missions. You'll note that we have started to decline our volume of business, and I will tell you that as we are dealing with shrinking defense budgets in the current years and in the near future years, that has reduced the level of investment that is available for our Navy facility infrastructure across the globe. The message of today's brief with respect to NAVFAC, Europe, Africa, Southwest Asia is that while the Department of Defense budget is shrinking, the actual workload in this part of NAVFAC's global operations is actually increasing. We have several expansions that we're taking part in right now across the entire area of operations. First off, we'll get into more details later, but in the country of Djibouti, we're expanding a joint base that is out there pretty significantly to handle the mission for Africa Command. In Rota, Spain, we are expanding the mission sets on that base with a decision that was made almost a year ago now by the Secretary of the Navy to home port 4 Aegis-class destroyers at Rota, Spain. Additionally, we are building a new base in Romania for a ballistic missile defense mission. And lastly, the other most significant thing that we are dealing with that affects our increasing volume of business in EURAFSWA is in Bahrain. A lot of waterfront construction going on for an expanding mission in Bahrain to support home porting of mine countermeasure ships and patrol craft squadrons. So we'll get into some more of those details here with the rest of the presenters, more specifically on what we have on our docket for FY13 and beyond. But the message is, as NAVFAC's workload and the Department of Defense budget is decreasing for this period of time in the near future, we're actually experiencing workload growth in Europe, Africa, and Southwest Asia. The next slide we have is a depiction of our laydown of offices throughout Europe, Africa, and Southwest Asia. You can see that we have, as part of the Facilities Engineering Command here in Naples, we have 5 offices in Europe. We have 2 offices in Africa, with Djibouti being the hub of operations, a small office in Kenya. But Djibouti is the hub for Africa Command operations, and we have a footprint there to execute our work. And then 2 main sites in Southwest Asia, Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates. Additionally, we're growing an office that will soon be opening up in Romania for the ballistic missile defense base that we're building. And to be determined, there is quite a bit of workload on the docket in Cairo, Egypt, supporting the Navy Preventive Medical Unit operations in the country of Egypt. So it's a very dynamic area of operations, an awful lot going on. We serve 3 geographic combatant commanders, Europe Command, Africa Command, and Central Command, as well as the 5th Fleet and 6th Fleet commanders, headquartered in Naples, Italy, and Bahrain. And then also Transportation Command and the Special Operations Command that we serve. So operating overseas, there are also, from many perspectives, host nation agreements and international agreements that make business overseas rather unique. There are different rule sets in the field of environmental, et cetera, that we'll talk about in a bit, but certainly different cultures and practices everywhere you go throughout the area of operations. So recently, as our workload has increased, we are very gratified, I would say, to see the significant interest in the contracting community in doing business with NAVFAC in these sometimes difficult places to do business overseas. So appreciate that interest, and we look forward to giving you more detail today so that you can best posture to be prepared for that growing workload in this region. And we look forward to partnering with you in that regard. All right, the last slide that I'm going to talk about is a bunch of numbers that depict our overall volume of business throughout time, the last couple of years, and the projection for FY13, for which the rest of the presenters will get into more detail. With regard to the construction workload, you can see that our work in place in 11 and 12 and next year is around the $200 to $250 million range. If you look at the next line where it depicts our planning and design effort, you can see a major spike in fiscal year 12 where we executed quite a bit of design work and planning work in preparation for a lot of construction going on in the out years. That relates to the bump up in projection for our construction workload in FY13. But I will tell you that FY13 is representing a growth, but 14 should grow even higher than 13 per our current estimates, based on what we have with regard to design contracts and construction awards here at the end of fiscal year 2012. In the public works arena, maintaining installation infrastructure, you can see that we have a very steady workload, and with regard to facilities in place, you see a growth in the workload into the $150 million range. That represents a growing footprint in our area of operations, typically or particularly in Djibouti, a little bit in Spain, Bahrain, as well as the new base that we're building in Romania. We also have an environmental workload that remains constant and very important. As I touched on, differing rule sets throughout the area of operations. We have EPA regulations that we're all used to in the continental United States that typically relate to final governing standards that get negotiated with each host nation, and each of them are a little bit different. Not terribly far off of what we're used to with the EPA regulations in the States, but there are different rule sets that apply in each host country. So that presents from time to time challenges in just understanding what those are. As I mentioned, the rest of the presentation will cover the business operations for Naval Facilities Engineering Command, Europe, Africa, Southwest Asia in more specific detail. The next presenter will be Mr. Jeff Jodwin. He's going to talk about public works from an energy perspective, as well as all of our base operating support service contracts. We'll also touch next on our environmental program, and then we'll finish with the meat and potatoes of our construction and design operations. We'll provide for you as much information as we can on our military construction workload projections for the future. It will be based on information we have that's in the President's budget, for which that work has not been authorized and appropriated by Congress yet for FY13. But we will provide you some good detail that I think will give you a good feel for what lies ahead for FY13. And then we'll finish, of course, with a little bit of a discussion on our overall acquisition strategy and how we can put contracts in place to execute this growing workload. Once again, it's a pleasure to host you today. We have quite a few folks dialed in here today, and it's our hope that the information that we pass will be very helpful to you. It's our position that the better we can posture you for dealing with NAVFAC and doing business with us, it provides a great partnership and is to our mutual benefit. So we look forward to your interest and your questions at the end of the brief, and look forward to partnering with you in the future.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Captain Ferriello pointed out, my name is Jeff Jodwin, and I'm representing the Public Works business line for NAVFAC EURAFSWA. I'm going to speak to you about the energy program workload that we have. As you can see from this slide, we spend quite a bit of money procuring utilities. There's been a strategic shift towards investing in energy savings opportunities, and those opportunities are open to all contractors. There's two main programs that we invest our money in. One of them is the Energy Conservation Investment Program, ESIP. It's similar to MILCON, the way it's programmed and funded. The restriction on these types of projects are that they must be renewable. We have solar, wind, geothermal, projects of that nature. The other program is the Energy Savings Performance Contracts. Typically, these are contracts made with energy service companies in which a proposal for savings is made, and those savings are shared based on annual verification. Based on the increased focus on energy savings, our program has grown, as you can see from the slide, and it's projected that we'll have 22 projects in FY13, representing about $23 million in investment. Next slide talks about some of our recurring BOSS service contract opportunities coming in the near future. These aren't limited to FY13. We've kind of taken a further look ahead to give you an opportunity to start preparing for those opportunities you may have interest in. We're focusing on 4. There are potentially other opportunities coming up, but the scope of those have not been finalized completely yet. The first one on the list is in Sigonella, Italy. We have a base there. The contract is for performing services, what we call facility services, janitorial, pest control, grounds maintenance, and refuse collection, in addition to doing preventive maintenance and service calls on fixed equipment on the base. The value of that particular contract is estimated to be between 40 and 60 million over a 5-year term. It's a combination firm fixed price IDIQ contract, which means we can issue task orders for services or for small category 3 and 4 construction projects. We anticipate issuing the RFP in the first quarter of FY13. We have a multi-service contract in Gaeta, Italy. It's a smaller contract for a smaller site. It's a port facility with some administrative facilities and some waterfront infrastructure. Again, this contract's for services and preventive maintenance. It's a smaller contract, as I said, $750,000 to $3 million over a 3-year term. We're limited on non-BOSS contracts at 3-year contract terms, a year base with 2 1-year options. We anticipate issuing the RFP for that one in the 4th quarter of 2013. In Rota, Spain, we have a multi-services contract that includes services and some preventive maintenance. That's a $20 to $40 million contract over a 3-year term. The base is larger, so the dollar value is correspondingly higher. Again, it's going to be a 12-month base with 2 1-year options is what we currently envision. RFP issuance in the 1st quarter of 2014. And then in Cairo, Egypt, we have a smaller contract to support the medical research unit there. Primarily services, but there is some small PMI on elevators and their intercom systems, some boilers and water purification systems that they have there. $750K to $3 million over a 3-year term. Again, we anticipate issuing the RFP for that one sometime in the 4th quarter of 2014. Okay, so if there's no questions, next up is Mark Patterson representing the environmental business line.
If all BOSS would be selected at NAVFAC. Will the multi-service project also be selected that way?
The part of NAVFAC's centralization included moving the BOSS workload, which is the technical PWS, performance work statement development, and what we call the procuring contract office functions to NAVFAC Atlantic. NAVFAC EURAFSWA has got a key support role in that, obviously, because we're the ones who are most familiar with the requirements. The smaller contracts, I think it's going to be on a workload availability determination on whether or not we handle those contracts or NAVFAC Atlantic handles those. But I think if you keep your eyes open on the NICO websites and the FedBizOps, you'll be able to see what office to submit your proposals to.
The NAVFAC Europe, Africa, and Southwest Asia environmental business line work volume ranges between 3 to 5 million per year. 50 to 75% of that workload is executed through contracts back at various contracts back at NAVFAC Atlantic. The remaining 25 to 50% of that workload is executed through contracts that we execute here at NAVFAC Europe and Africa and Southwest Asia. The slide in front of you right now presents the planned contracts that we will be awarding. The first 4 are actually out of all 8 of those contracts, 6 are within the Southwest Asia area, specifically Bahrain, UAE, and Djibouti. The remaining 2 are within Europe and the entire AOR. Out of those first 4, we plan on executing or awarding those contracts by the end of the fiscal year. The first 3 are estimated at 3 million or 0.3 million, where the 4th is a $3 million contract. All 4 are over a 5-year period. So the 4th one there is oil and hazardous substance spill response and cleanup, and that's within Bahrain and the UAE. The 5th project is lab services for Italy that we plan on awarding in 2013. 6th is a replacement contract. As Captain Cariolo had mentioned, on our environmental standards and policy overseas, we develop the final governing standards for Spain, Italy, Greece, Bahrain, and the UAE. So this contract basically executes the update and development of the final governing standards. That's a $5 million contract over 5 years. So looking at replacing that in 2014. The remaining 2 are also replacement contracts that we plan on executing in 2017. Lab services for Bahrain and UAE, and then medical waste, hazardous waste incineration for Bahrain. So that concludes our workload volume here in for the environmental business line. I'd like to introduce the next presenter, which is Mr. Bernie Deneke, who will be presenting the Capital Improvements Program.
My name is Bernie Deneke. I'm the Capital Improvements Business Line Coordinator for NAVFAC Europe, Africa, and Southwest Asia. In that role, I'm basically responsible for design and construction oversight and policy at NAVFAC EURAFSWA. Before I jump into the slides, I just wanted to make a few general comments. We are receiving questions coming in over the web based on some of our previous presenters' comments, and we'll take those for action and then post them to at the end of the presentation later on the web. We'll post answers to those responses to the questions. I also wanted to recap just a little bit of, hopefully some of you were able to tune into the webinar yesterday where Mr. Ed Gallagher at NAVFAC Atlantic presented some brief comments. I wanted to recap a few of those just to reiterate a couple of points. Mr. Gallagher talked about consistency of products across NAVFAC. We strongly believe in that. He mentioned a couple of items. He mentioned the design build process that we utilize. We utilize that over here also in NAVFAC EURAFSWA. the 6-part RFP process. It's a standard format that NAVFAC uses, and we utilize that here also. Also, traditional design bid build, full plans and specs are utilized also here. Ed mentioned reliance on NAVFAC criteria and industry standards. We use that even though we're over in an overseas location. We use those standards for our design and construction projects here also. Along with that, a couple of unique requirements we have over here in EURAFSWA, or the host nation compliance requirements, where we have to comply with some of the host nation design and construction requirements that may impact our projects. Also, what you may see is increased ATFP requirements on some of our projects that go above some of the minimum standards that you would see stateside. Ed also discussed the one-step process for design bid build projects, full plans and specs. And then he also mentioned the two-step design build process where we utilize the standard evaluation factors. There's 6 standard evaluation factors that NAVFAC typically uses. Over here in EURAFSWA, we utilize the first 5. They're basically corporate. Number 1 is corporate approach. Number 2 is past performance. Number 3 is safety, but we evaluate that a little bit differently over here, where we're looking at the safety record of potentially international contractors who may not have the performance data that is utilized back in the States to measure safety. I believe that's the EMR and the DART rate. We modify that factor slightly over here for our construction contracts. Technical factor 4 is the technical solution. 5 is sustainability. And then the 6th factor, which we do not use in EURAFSWA AOR, is the small business. So in our solicitations, you'll see 5 factors that's similar to the 6 factors used stateside. Just a little bit about our design and construction. Captain Cariello talked about the various locations that we have offices. Our design and construction work is primarily executed through the 6 PWD offices. That'd be Bahrain, Suda, Crete, Naples, Italy, Sigonella, Italy, Rota, Spain, and Djibouti. We also have 1 ROINC office, a resident officer in charge of construction in northern Italy. And then at our headquarters element, we have an integrated product team that works to execute projects across the AOR. We also utilize the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to execute various pieces of our MILCON program, and I'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into the various projects and try to explain how that work gets executed, so you'll have a better idea how you might be able to get involved in those pieces of the program. The MILCON program, again, I'll just touch on it briefly here. We utilize the European district of the Corps of Engineers to execute work in Eastern Europe, Romania. That will be upcoming. We also use the Corps of Engineers, the Transatlantic Division, Transatlantic Mid-Eastern Division, which is located in Winchester, Virginia, to execute some of our work in Bahrain and an upcoming project in UAE that will be utilized. EURAFSWA, NAVFAC EURAFSWA also executes some of it. And we also utilize NAVFAC Atlantic to execute some of our MILCON program work. And I'll try to touch on that a little bit more as I discuss some of the various projects. Okay, I'll jump to the slides here so you'll be able to follow along with me. The first slide is a recap of the FY12 program. That is, currently we have 16 projects in the MILCON program this year, and the bulk of which are currently under award or have been awarded and are ongoing. You can see the listing there that we have 13, I should say, MILCON projects. Those are not only Navy projects, but Army and Air Force projects that we execute across the AOR. 2 UMC projects, urgent mine construction projects, and 1 energy project. Total of $493 million as part of the FY12 MILCON program. The next slide that I you have here in front of you is the FY13 MILCON program, and it discusses some of the highlights. I'll talk a little bit more specifically about the various locations and some of the projects at this basis. From an overall programs perspective, our goals are, our NAVFAC goals are 60% design build, 40% design bid build, and we will be hopefully achieving that in FY13. As you can see there, 6 projects will be design build, and 14 projects are selected to be design bid build. Our acquisition strategy is projected to be 11 standalone projects and 9 MAC projects. You can see the program allocation listed there below. The next couple of slides will get into a little bit more detail on the various projects. The program allocation, as Captain Cariello mentioned, other projects are in Camp Lemonnier in Djibouti, a large program there in terms of dollar amount and projects, and also in Bahrain. Here's a little bit, this slide starts to dig into a little bit more detail as to what the FY13 projects are. The dollar amounts that are shown there are the program amounts as indicated on the congressionally approved DD 1391s. In Camp Lemonnier for FY13, we have 5 projects. Those will be executed by NAVFAC Atlantic and also by NAVFAC EURAFSWA. You may see a combination of those, but primarily you will probably see solicitations coming out of NAVFAC Atlantic that will solicit for these projects. P230 is the HOA Joint Operations Center. That project it's anticipated that will be limited to U.S. firms due to some of the spaces that will be constructed within the facility. The other 4 projects that you see there listed for Camp Lemonnier, Djibouti will be more than likely full and open, unrestricted. International firms will be able to compete for those projects. NSA Bahrain, you see 3 projects there. In NSA Bahrain, these projects are executed by the Army Corps of Engineers at Winchester, Virginia. The Transatlantic Mideast Division executes those for us. We work very closely with them to define the program requirements, define the solicitation requirements, but ultimately they pull the packages together and also do the advertisements for that work. You would find those located on the Fed Bid Ops. So all of our solicitations would be listed on Fed Bid Ops. You just may see other execution agents executing some of our work. Road to Fame, we have 3 projects, and NAVFAC Atlantic and NAVFAC EURAFSWA will more than likely execute those projects. We will execute those projects. Continuing on, in Suda Bay, Greece, there's 3 projects anticipated there. A lot of horizontal work, runway and road work anticipated for Suda Bay, Greece. And NAVFAC Atlantic and NAVFAC EURAFSWA will pull those packages together for soliciting them. In Sigonella, Italy, 2 small ESEP projects. Those are the Energy Conservation Improvement Projects, part of the MILCON program. Those projects will probably be executed out of NAVFAC EURAFSWA. In Vicenza, Italy, the predominance of work in Vicenza is executing work for the Army. We are the MILCON execution agent in northern Italy, therefore we execute the Army's MILCON program there. 2 Army projects, fairly large projects, slated for FY13. In Aviano, Italy, that's also executed out of our Roink Northern Italy office, out of Vicenza there. There's an Air Force project. Again, we're the MILCON execution agent for both the Army and the Air Force in northern Italy. And the last project there is listed is Defisaliu, Romania, which is the Aegis Ashore project. Captain Cariello mentioned basically a new base that's being stood up there. That project will be executed by the Army Corps of Engineers out of the European District. Again, we will work very closely with them to define the program requirements, solicitation packages, and help them to execute that work. Okay, this is getting close here to the end, my last slide. Just an overview of a few items. How do we select our design strategy? We're going to do it in-house or via A&E, or design bid build. We have some general goals. Again, our goal is to produce 60% of the MILCON work, actually the MILCON work, through a design build acquisition strategy, and the other 40% through design bid build. So those are our rough goals that we try to achieve every year. A lot of it, if we execute some of the work in-house, it's a matter of whether or not we have the capacity to do it in-house and the capability. Oftentimes in NAVFAC EURAFSWA and even in NAVFAC Atlantic, we have to utilize our industry partners, our industry architectural engineering firms, to assist us in pulling the pre-award packages together. And then this all goes into our acquisition strategy on how we plan to execute the work. The construction acquisition strategy, for the most part, projects above $10 million are typically done standalone, full and open competition. Projects under $10 million, we look at MAC applicability if we have multiple award construction contracts available in the various locations to execute those smaller MILCON projects. Variation from design build. Again, design build is pretty much our default program. We look at the projects and try to make a determination whether or not it's appropriate to use design build or not. And based on those various drivers, we may switch the acquisition strategy to a design bid build type approach, providing full plans and specs. You'll see a couple of the items listed there where we may consider the design bid build acquisition strategy. Variations on the acquisition strategy, you can see some of those listed there. Again, we take these into consideration when we're trying to minimize our risk, the risk to the government, looking at what the best vehicle and the method is to accomplish some of the projects, and then also make the projects affordable and try to get the most bang for the buck in terms of funding that we may have available. That pretty much concludes my presentation. I believe I'm more than willing to field some questions. If any are posted there.
First question, are there three NAVFAC projects that are lagging in execution and will slip into FY13? That is, that haven't had RFP posted already in FY12.
Yes, there are. I know there's two of them, I believe. That's my notes. There's two FY12 projects. They would be one project in Rhoda, which is a whole house revitalization project. It's the phase 3, basically, and it entails some housing renovations in Rhoda. The project has explosive siting issues that's forcing it out of FY12 execution, and we're hoping to execute that in FY13. The other project that's moving out of 12 that does not have an RFP completed, actually it's going to be full plans and specs, is a high school in Vicenza, Italy, P054. I believe the current execution strategy for that is it's a late FY14 project, possibly slipping into 15. It has some reprogramming issues and some scope issues. We're still trying to define some of the requirements with the DIA, which is the Department of Defense Education Agency.
Another question, will you use independent design review on design bid build projects?
Not quite sure I fully understand the question. Will you use independent design review on design bid build projects? Typically, we don't do that. We pretty much do our design quality assurance in-house to oversee an A&E type work. Can you repeat that question one more time? See if I understand.
Will you use independent design review on DB/DB projects?
DB/DB. And I'm not quite sure I fully understand the question. For design build projects that are executed by the construction contractor and executed by his A&E, we provide design quality assurance on those projects in-house, either here at NAVFAC EURAFSWA or at NAVFAC Atlantic.
Next question. Why don't you say whom was awarded each FY11 and 12 projects? Why was reluctant?
I'd have to probably defer that one to acquisition. Why don't we? We'll take that for action and post that to the notes.
Well, go ahead and answer that. You can answer it one more.
Okay, can you say it again, please?
Why don't you say whom was awarded each FY11 and 12 projects? Why the reluctance?
There is no reluctance. We are required to advertise who our awardees are. If you have specifics, please send them in and we can address them.
Next.
Next question. What is the reason for advancing design build projects to the 60% point? Seems like true design build should start around the 20% point.
I'm not aware of any specific instances where we've taken it to 60%. Usually through our 6-part RFP process for design build, we typically like to consider that like a 10 to 20% design requirements definition phase, where we define what we're looking for in terms of design build and put that out for solicitation. So I'm not aware of any instances where we go to 60%.
I think that's on the next. 60% design build.
Okay, 60% design build of goals. I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question. The 60% design build.
Sorry, I think they misunderstood what you were saying with the split. They're just going to have to be a 60% design. We're just doing a 60% design build contract.
Okay.
40% design build.
Okay, I'll clarify that. The 60% design build is a programmatic goal that we take 60% of the program, the MILCON program, actually, the Navy MILCON program, and we allocate it towards being executed design build. And the other 40% is available for design bid build execution, development of full plans and specs. And it's the way that Congress budgets the program in terms of how these goals are set up in order to maximize use of the money and execute the program. Hopefully I explained it correctly. How many questions are there? Yeah, we'll take a few more.
Yeah, we answer as many questions as we can, and questions that we can't answer, we'll post to easier to go back. The next one was at 686.
Next question. Will T686 Task Force Command require U.S. security clearance? U.S. firm secured forms. Same question for Bahrain EAMS project.
Good question. I actually was trying to find that out before I came over here. I'll have to take the one for the task force compound for an action item. I don't know the answer to that. It will depend on what some of the requirements are within the task force compound on whether or not it would be restricted to a U.S. firm. The other one for the Aegis Ashore complex, to my knowledge, the portion of the facility that will be executed by NAVFAC will not require need for a U.S. contractor to complete that project. That project is a very large project. There's the portion of the base that NAVFAC is responsible for, which are your typical barracks, administrative buildings, a warehouse, entry control point. But the operational side of the facility, which is more the missile defense piece, is actually being executed through MEA and MILCON there. And I believe their portion of the project will be restricted to U.S. firms, but I don't have the full knowledge of that. But I think the NAVFAC piece will be unrestricted as far as I'm at this point.
They would like you to repeat the question.
Okay, yeah, I'll repeat the question. Sorry about that.
When will the Djibouti 3-in-1 project be awarded?
When will the Djibouti 3-in-1
Project be awarded?
I'm not sure what project that refers to. I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. Laura, do you? Yeah, it's not clear what the specific question is. The 3-in-1 project in Djibouti.
So
Next question.
why don't you just answer in general, the FY12 projects will all be awarded?
Yeah, the target, I believe most of the, for Djibouti, the FY12 projects, they're all out on the street now. Some of them have recently been awarded. Many of them still have to be awarded, but the target is certainly this fiscal year, by the end of September. So that's the goal for the projects in Djibouti, the FY12 projects. Many of them have a requirement to be awarded this fiscal year due to some of the funding constraints. So that's what we're moving toward, and we're looking pretty good on that end.
3-in-1 Kayla is
Okay, the Kayla, the taxiway, and the ammo supply point, that's a 3-in-1 project. Okay, that's the 3 projects in Djibouti, the Kayla, combat area loading apron, the taxiway extension, and the ammunition supply point is what the question refers to. And again, that project is on track for year-end award.
Next question, why is ACOE doing the Romania project and not NAVFAC?
Romania, the area of responsibility for Romania resides with the Corps of Engineers, European District Corps of Engineers. It's the way Congress has set up how the MILCON program is executed. And across our AOR, the NAVFAC EURAFSWA AOR, we have to work with different Army Corps of Engineers near offices who are designated to execute those programs within those various countries. It's just the way it's done. Similar to how NAVFAC is responsible for executing the MILCON program, the Army MILCON program in North Italy. So.
And the last question that I see is, which maps are you referring to for construction?
Which maps am I referring to for construction? We have, we're in the process of setting up various multiple award construction contracts at various locations. Pretty much at each PWD will have a MAC, Laura, is that right? Yeah, each PWD office or location where we are executing work where we have those PWDs, we have MAC contracts in place to execute those pieces of work. Next one.
Yeah, we need to answer that question. I don't think so.
Was that it? Okay. With that, I'm going to end the questions now. We certainly welcome more questions as we get them in. relating to the execution, design, and construction, we'll be more than happy to try to address those and post them to the website. Captain Cariello alluded to, we can't do it without the contractors out there. You are our industry partners. We need you. We welcome your comments and questions in order to clarify some of our program requirements and figuring out how to do some of the work. So keep the questions coming, and we look forward to working with you. With that, I'm going to introduce Ms. Laura Haverlock. She's the head of our acquisition support line here at NAVFAC EURAFSWA. Thank you.
Hello, Chief of Contracting here at EURAFSWA. I am here to present to you the acquisition methods and vehicles that we currently have in place and we typically have here in this AOR. The first thing I wanted to tell you is that all of our acquisitions, being OCONUS acquisitions, are solicited, full and open. There are no small business or any type of discriminating any type of set-asides whatsoever. One thing I did want to go over, and there was a question that came in after Bernie finished, and that was if all of the attendees would be made available like they were made available at the industry forum we had here in March. There will be a question and answer portion sent out by LANT to all of the people who have logged into this webinar today. So everyone who has an email address that logged into the webinar will be getting the question and answers that have occurred during this session. Okay. And the two types of acquisition types of contracts that we award here, one is LPTA, which is low price, technically acceptable, and the second is the best value source selection. Yes? No? The government has the discretion of awarding with or without discussions. I wanted to go over a couple types of contracts that we typically have here. One is the multiple award MAC construction or multiple award construction contracts, and we call them MAC, M-A-C-C. They run typically 5 years. We can select up to 6 contractors. What this basically is an IDIQ type of construction contract where we compete task orders within that range of up to the 6 contractors that have gotten that award only. So they wouldn't be advertised full and open after that period. The MACs that we have currently are in Southwest Asia, CLDJ, and in CLDJ we are going to have a mini and a medium-sized MAC. We have one in Spinella, and we also have one planned for Italy in FY13. We have job order contracts. Those typically run 5 years. We currently have one in Italy, Sudabay, and CLDJ. We also have IDIQ type contracts for A&E, construction, and there's a variety of, as you see on this slide, for the types of contracts that we have for IDIQ. Next slide. This slide gives you the points of contact for here and in Midland. I am the Chief of Contracts. I'm the first one listed. The second is our Acquisition Team Lead, Nancy Penrod. And the third is Acquisition Team Lead in NAVFAC Midland, Lisa Sutner. Next slide. This is for informational purposes. I wanted to bring your attention to the important websites. One in particular I wanted to make sure that you understood is that you needed to go into and register for the one that is circled, EuroMICO, and that is particular to EURAFSWA. So if you have any questions, please submit them now. No.
The first question, are you required to consider small business goals in your overseas acquisitions?
The question is, are we required to consider small business goals in overseas locations? No, we are not required. All our acquisitions are full and open.
The next question, are your contracts open worldwide, or which countries are allowed to bid on your foreign contracts?
Okay.
Are your contracts open worldwide?
Okay. Are your contracts open? The next question is, are your contracts open worldwide, or which countries are allowed to bid on your foreign contracts? We advertise all of our requirements on EuroNICO and FedBizOps. As far as restricting competition, I would have to defer to legal as far as companies or countries that we cannot do business with.
There is a list of those countries.
Yes, there is.
That will be prohibited.
Yes, there is currently. There is currently a list of countries that we are prohibited from doing business with. And we'll publish that with the answers, question and answer portion of this webinar.
The next question, are any countries' labor force allowed on your contract? And then the last question, are the labor wage rates always specified in your contract?
The next question is, are the labor rates always specified in our contracts? In accordance with whatever country we advertise our requirements in, typically are what the labor rates are for that country. There are no standard labor rates that we mandate for acquisitions coming out of here. It would be that country's labor rate.
And then last question, what about max at the Roy location?
Yeah. Okay, we have several MACs throughout this AOR, and if the MAC is not specific, it covers a wide range of area responsibility. For instance, the Italy MAC would cover northern Italy, southern Italy, middle Italy, and vice versa for the Southwest Asia would cover multiple locations.
Just got another one. You publish awards of task orders via MAC through awarded period of performance amount. We publish awards of task orders via MAC.
Okay, we just received one question, another question that has actually two questions within it. The first question is, will you publish awards of task orders via MAC? And the second part is who awarded period of performance amount? Okay. We do not publish the awards of our MAC requirements because we do not publicize the requirements at the beginning. They go on the MAC contract just like an IDIQ to issue a task order.
But we will publish the MAC.
The MAC requirements are advertised and solicited full and open. The awards of those MAC contracts, each MAC has multiple awardees, will be published. And coinciding with that, the amount of each contract award for the max is also published. If that was the question, I hope I answered the question.
I think you already said, but just to clarify one more time, that task orders will not be publicized.
Task orders will not be individually publicized.
Next question, for all design build max, will a seed project be provided for purposes of responding to the RFP?
Okay. You should have done
For all design build max.
for all, I'm trying to figure out which one it is. For all, the next question is, for all design build max, what, oh, don't do that. Will a seed project be provided for purposes of responding to the RFP? Typically on max, we do advertise with a seed. However, sometimes we don't, and we're not mandated to advertise with a seed, and that is in phase 2 of the phase 1 and 2 for awarding max. But usually we do.
Next question. Can foreign nationals be used in a European or African country? For instance, can a Filipino workforce be used in Djibouti or Italy?
I don't want to say a caveat for all though. Okay, the next question is, can foreign nationals be used in a European or African country? For instance, can a Filipino workforce be used in Djibouti or Italy? I will have to defer to, I don't want to give a general answer because there's a lot of implications because of all the different countries that we advertise in. So I would have to tell you that I will have to defer to legal to give an all-encompassing answer to this question, which will be posted in the question and answers from this webinar.
Next one, can foreign nationals work on U.S. bases?
Next question, can foreign nationals work on U.S. bases? I can tell you that foreign nationals have to be in the States, have to have green cards to work on U.S. bases. As far as working in OCONUS, I will have to defer to legal, and that will be provided to you. Okay, done. This concludes our brief. It was our pleasure hosting you. Thank you for your attention, and we look forward to working with you and the challenges in the near future.